The Ghost of Geography, a comparative analysis of maritime choke points. Chapter 1, The Choke, the Physics of the Narrow. Act 2, The Anatomy. When we examine the broad patterns of human history through the lens of geographic determinism, we must rigorously distinguish between the immediate, human-driven events that trigger a crisis and the ancient, unyielding environmental factors that make the crisis structurally possible in the first place. This is the search for the ultimate cause. The global economy is currently being held by the throat in the Persian Gulf, not simply because of the political animosities of the 21st century, but because of the relentless, grinding machinery of plate tectonics. The Strait of Hormuz is a monumental geological accident, a temporary pinch in the crust of the Earth created by the slow-motion collision of entire continents. Long before the first human beings walked the Earth or forged bronze tools, a vast body of water known to geologists as the Neotethys Ocean separated the ancient landmasses. Over millions of years, the Arabian Plate tore away from the African continent and began a steady, inexorable drift to the north. As it migrated across the globe, it pushed the ancient oceanic crust ahead of it, driving it deep into the mantle of the Earth beneath the massive Eurasian Plate. This process of subduction and continental collision is the ultimate, silent architect of the entire Middle Eastern landscape. The violent collision crumpled the edges of the Eurasian Plate, pushing up the jagged, formidable peaks of the Zagros Mountains, a massive fold and thrust belt that runs across modern-day Iran and forms the towering northern wall of the Persian Gulf. As the Arabian Plate continues to smash into Eurasia, a process still occurring today at a rate of roughly 1 inch per year, the land buckles and bends under unimaginable planetary pressure. The Musandam Peninsula, a rugged, barren finger of land projecting from the Arabian side, marks the very front line of this ongoing tectonic war. Geological surveys of the region, including extensive studies of the Oman Mountains, reveal that this peninsula is actually sinking under the immense weight and leverage of the continental collision. As the massive limestone mountains of the Musandam are dragged downward into the earth, the rising waters of the ocean rush in to fill the collapsing valleys. This creates a spectacular, deeply indented coastline of drowned river valleys, known to geologists as rias, which visually resemble the glacier-carved fjords of the polar regions. This specific tectonic alignment creates the physical dimensions of the Strait of Hormuz. The convergence of the continental plates is not uniform across the region. To the east of the Musandam Peninsula, the oceanic crust is still sliding smoothly beneath the continent in a classic subduction zone. But directly at the peninsula, the thicker continental rocks of Arabia and Eurasia are colliding head-on. This blunt impact slows the tectonic advance and creates a sharp, northward step in the coastline. This precise differential in planetary motion, pivoting along ancient fault lines, is the ultimate reason why the gap between Oman and Iran narrows to a mere 21 miles. It is an environmental bottleneck forged in the slow fires of deep time, predestining the region to become a crucible of human conflict. The danger of this geographic trap is further compounded by the topography of the ocean floor, known as bathymetry. To the east, the Gulf of Oman is a vast, open expanse of deep water, a true oceanic basin that allows massive ships to travel freely and disperse widely. But as vessels move westward, attempting to cross the threshold into the Persian Gulf, the ocean floor rises dramatically. The Persian Gulf itself is essentially a flooded continental shelf, a shallow, sun-baked basin that is entirely unsuitable for deep-draft navigation in its southern reaches. The interplay between the deep ocean and the shallow shelf creates unique marine heat waves and complex current systems, but more importantly, it severely restricts where heavy ships can safely sail. The bathymetry of the strait dictates that there is only one viable path for the colossal supertankers that carry the energy and agricultural supplies of the world. The deepest water hugs the rugged, sinking coast of the Musandam Peninsula to the south, featuring vast depths that can accommodate fully laden vessels. Conversely, the waters gradually taper into treacherous, narrow shallows toward the Iranian shore to the north. Consequently, international maritime law has established a rigid traffic separation scheme, a pair of narrow, invisible highways painted on the water, routing all inbound and outbound behemoths through a highly concentrated zone north of the Omani Islands. Fully laden vessels simply cannot deviate from these deep channels without risking catastrophic grounding. This is the anatomical definition of a geographic choke. It is a spatial vulnerability that entirely defies human engineering. In our modern hubris, we construct ships of staggering proportions, floating cities of steel capable of carrying hundreds of thousands of tons of cargo. We invent sophisticated satellite networks to guide them and build massive naval armadas to protect them. Yet, despite all our technological brilliance, we cannot alter the shape of the bedrock beneath the waves. We cannot dynamite the Zagros Mountains to widen the passage, nor can we dredge the entire Persian Gulf to create alternative deepwater routes. The massive vessels we depend upon for our civilization's survival are utterly constrained by the depth of the water and the width of the channel provided by nature. The environmental determinism of the Strait of Hormuz is absolute and unforgiving. If a nation wishes to extract the vast hydrocarbon and chemical wealth of the Arabian Peninsula, it must submit to the gauntlet of the strait. There are no viable overland pipelines capable of entirely replacing the sheer volume of maritime shipping. As noted by geopolitical analysts studying the global fertilizer crisis, while Saudi Arabia has built pipelines to the Red Sea, these alternative routes are designed exclusively for crude oil. They cannot begin to handle the massive output of synthetic ammonia products, liquefied natural gas, or the diverse bulk commodities required by the global market. The pipeline capacity is a mere fraction of the maritime capacity, rendering the shipping lanes indispensable. Therefore, any political entity that controls the northern shoreline of this tectonic pinch point holds a knife directly to the jugular of the global economy. The Iranian military establishment does not need to possess a blue water navy that rivals the United States in sheer tonnage or advanced aircraft carriers. They only need to exploit the geographic reality of the choke. A handful of submerged sea mines laid in the narrow shallows, a swarm of fast-attack speedboats darting from hidden coves, or the deployment of land-based anti-ship missiles hidden within the rocky folds of the Zagros Mountains are entirely sufficient to render the deepwater channels impassable. The environment acts as a force multiplier, allowing a regional power to dictate terms to global superpowers. The environment has molded the history and the strategic destiny of the region. The oppressive heat, the suffocating humidity, the shifting seasonal winds, and the shallow, treacherous seabed have combined to create an impassable wall when contested by a determined gatekeeper. We are witnessing a crisis that seems entirely modern, characterized by drone warfare, complex supply chains, and global financial panic, but it is fundamentally a crisis of geography. It is the inescapable consequence of human populations desperately needing resources that are locked behind a door built by plate tectonics. And as we look backward through the long, illuminating lens of history, we find that this is not the first time humanity has been held captive by a narrow stretch of sea.